Okay, let's get myself settled in here. I am very happy to have a webcam back again. So, there's a point that I want to talk about that just happened. I went to my grandparents' house with my mother, and this is a problem that I've been taking on and addressing for on and off for a little more than a year. Is my grandparents, my grandparents, the grandparent dynamic in my family. Um, my grandparents live pretty close to me, and um, my mom, my sister, and me are the only family they have in the city, and my grandparents' relationship is very volatile and unstable, and they're getting older, they're aging, their bodies are slowly failing, and their relationship is becoming more strenuous with these pressures. So I guess I kind of want to spend this video doing like a history of my grandparents, like the dynamic where my grandparents are in my family and where I stand in relation to that with my mom and my sister, but I'd rather make this video talking about the point that just happened while it's still nice and fresh. So, despite everything that I just said, I kind of like going to my grandparents' house because I have a clear um, context in which I can exist and apply myself where I don't tend to feel like I've done something. I don't take things at my grandparents' house personally. The stuff that happens there isn't, I don't interpret it as like a personal failure, and I don't go into that whole self-judgment and depression experience. So that's that's cool. So I went over there tonight with my mother. Oh, that sounded kind of mad. With my mother. And uh point came up. So we're sitting at the dinner table. My grandparents are quite formal in an old Western cowboyish way, and so we're sitting at the dinner table. My mother, my grandfather, my grandmother, and me, and the silence hangs heavy when the conversation breaks, and it's kind of uncomfortable there. And conversation's rolling along, and I brought up my cousin Sean. I was just kind of stirring the pot because Sean, my cousin Sean, has gotten into quite a bit of trouble in his life or something, and my grandmother feels like he's a failure, and then she goes into all kinds of mental shit about that. I don't really know what kind, I haven't really investigated it, but she just goes all kinds of shit about my cousin Sean. So I brought him up just because everything was kind of like stalling, and now looking back on it, I probably should not have done that, but um, I brought up Sean just to see what would happen. And my grandmother, no, not just to see what would happen. It's a little bit different. It's not quite. It's more like a defense mechanism that I've developed over the years where because that uncomfortability, that like intimacy with these people and their problems, and it is kind of like unsettling to me, so I kind of fall back on this very masculine, very male idea of strength by like throwing out things that I know are going to be um excuse me. Yes, you can open the door, yes. You can open the door.
What?
Good. What's up?
This stuff
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the floor,
Yep.
this will kill dogs.
Will they eat it willingly?
They will drink it willingly like it's going out of style. So be careful. Antifreeze is dog's worst poison.
Okay, I'll
Just,
keep an eye out for it. Thank you for telling me.
just don't leave it down on the floor where they could tear. I'm not saying they couldn't drink it. He didn't do anything wrong. I'm not trying to make that side. I'm just trying to tell you.
I didn't take it that way. It's cool.
This stuff is dog killer. You want to kill a dog? Soak this hot dog in this shit, and you'll kill him. He'll eat the hot dog. They love this stuff. They think it tastes like candy, and it will fuck their entire insides up. They'll this could have been the reason that Puck died from kidney. This will give him kidney failure in like a matter of weeks, not even that long. It's dangerous, very dangerous for
Okay, thanks. Okay, so kind of lost my place there. Um, yeah, throwing out controversial issues, like not even like issues uh, as per the standard, just throwing out shit that I know will cause a stir, so that I can pretend like I'm not gonna even that statement right there, like where I was like, so that I can, that movement right there is kind of like I understand it already completely, even though I just noticed it 5 seconds ago. So I'm not gonna go off topic and into that point of like needing to prove myself. I don't really know what it's a problem, obviously. I can see that much, but that's not really the topic of the video. And so I brought up Sean, and then talking about cousins now with my grandmother, and I said that I looked at the point of Sean being like this rebel and this complete outcast, and um, just like from the family, and I said, and also probably an ego related point, I said, I think Sean is the cousin who's most likely like me. And my grandmother then said, oh no, it's not Sean, it's your cousin Kenneth. You guys are both very dead set in your ways. You're both very opinionated, and you're both uh, already old men, even though you're young. And so I thought that was kind of funny because my cousin Kenneth is quite a bit like that, and I didn't see that in myself, and so I was kind of considering that. And then my mom over here, she gets visibly just angry at my grandmother, who's her mother, and just like literally, I can just see it. And she literally just has to like keep herself from like uh, just yeah towards my grandmother, and I kind of wanted to step in and be like, no, it's I didn't take it like that. That's not necessary at all. Um, and interesting when I saw my mom get mad, I actually did kind of feel like she was mad because of me. Like it was my fault that she was mad. It's like I got upset, like not like it's my fault, but like I got upset about like my grandmother had actually attacked me, and like I actually was hurt by my grandmother, and like, oh, why does this have to happen? Is this so bad? Am I really that bad? Am I really as bad as grandma said I was? So I kind of accepted that as the my definition of myself. Okay, so there's that, and okay, yeah. So then later, like 15 minutes later, my dinner's over, and my mom is doing the dishes in the kitchen. And where you're standing in the kitchen, you can hear people in the living room. And so my grandparents want my mom to not do the dishes and to let them do the dishes. And so they keep telling her to stop doing the dishes. And my mom ignores them and just kind of like says kind of like kind of uh, just like empty remarks, like kind of disregarding the point that my grandparents don't want her to do the dishes, and just be like, oh, I'll do it. Like, oh, everything's fine. But at the same time, like, actually fighting with my grandparents. And it actually kind of devolved into a point where my mom was literally just totally ignoring my grandparents as they told her they didn't want her to do the dishes. And just like angrily scrubbing the dishes. And so I went and addressed my mom about it, and she kind of went and kind of threw up her hands and was like, fine, I won't do the dishes. Let's go, let's leave. And I told her, I told her that I'm not gonna leave with you. I don't like what you're doing. And so my mom kind of saw that if she was to just take off and leave, that she really would be a problem, and that it would be all in her lap, and she couldn't blame her parents for it. So she just kind of like sat down and she calmed down. But I'm not. But based on her later actions, I'm not too sure that what happened in that moment where she didn't leave and where she sat down was all that cool. Because so then she sits down and the whole thing calms down and the whole conflict is gone. And then I'm talking with my grandparents and I'm making just kind of casual small talk. And then it's time to leave. And my mom and I leave, and I'm in the car, and I prompt my mom to talk about the experience. And my mom starts oh yeah, my mom starts just unleashing about her relationship with her mother and her family, like and she brought up some aspects of their relationship that I didn't see, and so I actually, in the experience of watching my mom like go into that point of like spite and anger doing the dishes, um, I reacted and got mad at her, um, but not saying that what she was doing was any less uncool because of her history and her past. That's total bullshit. So that's not at all what I'm saying. But I didn't really understand what she was doing or see the full context of the conflict that was going on. So I sided with my grandparents and went to a point of blame towards my mother. Which, if I'd had that information about the history and my mom's perspective, then I could have had that knowledge as a checking point to see that, oh, whoops, wait, I'm getting mad at my mom, which is a point that I missed. I got mad at her when she went to that point of spite. Okay, yeah. Also, that's another thing that I really need to flag here for myself is that when my mom went to a point of spite and was like, I saw her as causing all this conflict in my life out of out of spite. Um, and there's like this experience where I just, yeah, okay, so I tried to just there earlier suppress this point and not see it in myself, but there's like an experience where just I get fucking just pissed off with someone, and every little thing about who they are and what they're doing just pisses me the fuck off and disgusts me. That's a specific reaction that indicates that actually what they're doing is what I do. So that point of spite that my mom went into in conflict against her parents is really something that I need to look into for real because I had that reaction of anger and blame towards my mom. Anger, blame, disgust, just it's quite specific. So yeah, so that's the point that I glazed over and that was fucking up my telling of the story. So we're in the car, mom is talking about her experience with her parents and um, how yeah, okay, so yeah, okay, so I missed my mom is we're in the car and she's saying that her father like is very just controlling in like a nice way, like uh excessively concerned about her and about her not having to do anything hard and she said that she was mad that her parents always complain about having to do work on their own and that nobody ever helps them, and then they won't let her do the dishes. And yeah, okay, so there's this moment where my mom is just kind of like letting it out and expressing her just like absolute overwhelmedness with this point. And I remember, okay, so just a second ago in the story, I was saying, not a second, like a few minutes, but I was saying how my mom like literally had to physically restrain herself from just lashing out at my grandma. She confirmed that point in the car where she was like, she wanted to just like, ah, how can you say that? Look at what you're saying to her mom. But not quite in the same manner that I just mimed. That's quite a bit softer than my mom was actually holding herself back from doing. So Then my mom starts going in. She goes in from a point of like just letting it out into a point of like justifying herself and being like, oh well, it's been so long and it's happened for so many years and yada yada yada. And I stepped in and I was like, no, you can't go into that point where you're like, um, it's so overwhelming and it's way too much and um, yeah. So I stepped in and that was the appropriate thing for me to do at that point because my mom was actually going into uh, uh, like self pity and justification of the whole experience. And so basically, there was like a few seconds where mom could have stepped through and had like an actual realization in realizing where the practical application has to come in for her to stop this conditioned demonic volatile emotional dynamic between her and her parents. And she went from that point into self pity and justification and actually like a delusion, which is very clever. Like it's this, like, oh, it's just been so long, and so it actually looks like she's addressing the problem, and she kind of feels like she's dealing with it because it feels like someone's recognizing her and identifying with her experience, which is becomes like it's just total fucked up. So she went into a point of justification and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get home, and I'm really like, we're like parked in front of my dad's house because I live with my dad. My mom lives somewhere else, and oops, that also sounded. I live with my dad. My mom lives somewhere the fuck else because she doesn't care about me. So, um, we're sitting in front of my dad's house. My mom just kind of wants me to get out of the car, and I'm really looking for her to acknowledge and confirm, like, yeah, okay, we need to, work together and deal with this point. And I'm trying to be soft about, like, I know this is very hard, but trying to be like soft about it and not come out and be like, no, this is what you need to do. I don't trust that application ever. So but my mom just got frustrated and um, um, just like, no, I'm not gonna do this. I want to go home. I'm gonna go home and read. And I was like, yeah, okay, at least go home and write about it. She's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And and so I saw that I was not able to continue pushing the point without it turning into a gigantic uh, explosive conflict. And so I just got out of the car. And I wanted, when I got out of the car, just to like kick the fuck out of her door and put a big dent in her door. But I didn't because that's just like shit that just, even if it would have like had the effect that, no, it wouldn't have. It just would have pissed my mom off, and then she would have gone into spite against me. It would have taken like a month to correct that, so that we can get back on speaking terms and even again begin to discuss going to my grandparents' house together. So I didn't wisely, wisely enough, I didn't kick the fuck out of her door, and I left. And my mom, there was some of my stuff in the car, and one of my cousins had left me some candy, and so my mom beckoned me back to get my stuff and the candy, and I thought about just walking away and not looking at her, talking to her anymore, but I didn't because that had a spiteful flavor to it, a spiteful feeling to it. So I just went back and took the stuff and then turned away and left, and um, just totally like not giving the point any more attention than the least amount of attention necessary to uh, ensure that I'm not going to participate in a way which causes unnecessary conflict and causes my mom to go into a point of spite or anger towards me that uh, could have potentially been avoided. So that was my experience with my grandparents tonight. And yeah, recap for myself is to investigate that moment where my mom is doing the dishes and she's like frustrated and just totally shutting out my grandparents and becoming very spiteful and uh, me feeling like she's creating all this conflict and anxiety in myself. So there's quite a bit of anxiety within that experience. So that's it for this video.